welcome again. Mr. Parker is here today. John Parker, Board President of GRF. And yesterday, your board meeting was about what people see. In other words, the open meeting was just over 3 hours by a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Of course, you folks are there much later.
Yes, we leave the boardroom and then we have a quick lunch, and we were there until 4:45 yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, so a long day. So yesterday, as always, it starts out with public comments and things, and one of the things that was talked about, and this was also, you talked about this in your chair's report and all, and so on, about the emeritus program. Am I right? And also, I should say, Brad did as well.
Yeah, actually Brad is the one that spoke about it. I did not. We had 12 members who stood up and gave comments, and 6 of those were discussing emeritus. And usually I don't talk about the member comments in my summary, but what we're talking about and what all these people were talking about yesterday is the fall semester.
Right.
So here we are, it's May, the very beginning of May, and we're talking about something that'll happen in September.
Right.
But since we now have a formal agreement with Saddleback College, which we did not have previously, and our agreement states that we inform Saddleback College of what GRF facilities will be available for them to use for classes, and at what hours those facilities will be available to use for classes. So we gave that information to Saddleback. We scheduled for the fall semester are over 90 classes. The people who came in and spoke are talking about the approximately 12 classes that we're not doing. And a majority of the people who spoke are talking about a circuit training class that Saddleback has been offering. What we have to make clear is that we, through our recreation department, offer a lot of circuit training. And in addition to that, what happens when Saddleback has a class in the gym, everybody has to leave the gym except for those people that are enrolled in that class. So even though somebody is using a treadmill or somebody's using an exercise bicycle, which has nothing to do with the circuit training, those people have to leave the facility. And we've received a lot of complaints. And in addition to that, the recreation department has been monitoring the percent of residents versus non-residents in some of these classes. And while some of the people who spoke dispute those statistics, what we are trying to do is make our facilities available to the greatest number of residents. We are not anti people coming from the outside. What we are is residents first.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we stand on Saddleback. And so if people hear that Saddleback classes are being eliminated and blah, we have 90 classes.
Okay, so about 90 classes will still be there.
We're just looking at those classes that have an inordinate number of non-residents and tie up a facility and make it unavailable for resident use.
Okay, all right. And we want to make sure that people understand, as you said, that's the fall semester. Because the summer is already in place, basically. Yeah, people have signed up and so on. Next, we had a nice presentation from Security Director Tim Moy about the emergency operation plan that has been being looked at, been ongoing, and interesting how the plan that was in place for some places, like the towers, goes back decades.
30 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, those of us that attended the Security and Gate Access Committee were the consultants, and I want to say their name, the consultant is Lopez, but that's
right. Yes.
The group.
Yes. Yeah.
And the presentation was just unbelievably comprehensive and totally professional. And I think those of us that are on the board, and the other boards as well, because there were representatives from all the different boards at that meeting, are just excited that we will have in place something that comprehensive and that professional. And one of the things that was discussed by Chief Moy and Catherine Freshley mentioned it as well, is after 9/11 and as a national crisis, many agencies realized that everybody speaks a different language.
Yes, yeah, that's
and
true.
So since that time, and if you think 9/11, that's 8 years ago? Yes.
God, yeah, I'm thinking about,
What has happened is that there has been a concerted effort to standardize titles, to standardize procedures.
Yeah.
And that is what is so critical on this plan. So if something happens, all the coordinating agencies are speaking the same language, which just means for greater efficiency. And we are totally unique. There's probably not another entity in the state of California, and in many cases, not too many in the United States, that are a private community that have our kind of resources
Right, exactly.
and that have our kind of population. So we're very unique, and that presents some unique issues as well.
Yeah.
So I would hope that people, it's on the website now, the plan. I wouldn't call it easy reading.
No, but it's,
But there will be future presentations. I know that there's going to be something done here on the station.
Right.
That will then become available to rewatch. But this is long overdue, and it's just being done the way it should be.
Yeah.
So it's great to see. The other thing that is in conjunction with this is it's really important that we organize at a neighborhood level. So like, for instance, I live in a 6-unit building. So that building should have a designated building captain, but we're getting away from that term because we're not talking about Garden Villas.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's, I can't
Neighborhood
remember,
or something,
neighborhood something.
Yeah.
But so that you have somebody that knows who lives in the building, who their contact people are, what any limitations are. And so there will be a concerted effort to recruit people to take on that responsibility. And then there may be a group of buildings, a person, and then there may be a cul-de-sac for where we have cul-de-sacs. So that is, there's a need for involvement by a lot of residents, and of course there would be training that goes along with that. So this is all a work in progress, but very well done.
What was interesting is somebody commented yesterday about the city's plan, and as you pointed out, the city's plan is basically what the community's plan, the village plan, is going to be, because the city only has, less than 10 full-time staff members, obviously what's being coordinated here is hand in hand with the city, but it's really coming from the village.
Well, you see, the city is required by law to have a plan. We are not.
Right.
We wouldn't have to do anything. But I will say that we have a very good relationship with the city of Laguna Woods. So, you know, it's very much of a partnership.
Yeah,
and that continues to be on almost every level that we're working with.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very comprehensive plan, and I've met the 2 consultants that are helping, one of which he's an OCFA pilot, and with years and years and years of experience, and his wife, who's the other consultant, has been working to do this type of thing. She's been in emergency management for years. Great people, fantastic people.
No, we're very, very fortunate.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we spent a fair amount of time dealing with a resolution and a endorsement regarding media contracts. And maybe the people watching it didn't have a full understanding of what that's all about. But we are part of a consortium because our station is small in terms of viewership and when you look at the big pond.
Right.
So this consortium gives us greater clout when we go to negotiate contracts with the different stations and the different bundling packages. Those contracts are very, very different than the kind of contracts that we do when we build a clubhouse or pave a street or hire a consultant. So in reviewing the whole contract process, which has been an ongoing process ever since the transition, of reviewing contracts, reviewing change orders, and all that sort of thing, it was recognized that these media contracts are very, very different, and they're handled. Usually there's a timeline,
yes,
a rather limited timeline, and there are some very, very stringent privacies and secrecy, confidentiality during the negotiation.
Right.
And then, because these contracts are very specialized, we actually have a different law firm whose expertise is in reviewing media contracts. So the resolutions that we passed yesterday were recognizing the uniqueness of those contracts and making it appropriate to handle those contracts differently than our other matrix set up for how we deal with contracts. So that was a bit of housekeeping.
yeah,
And sometimes that gets down to the word and down to the period. And, you know, like I said in the meeting, you could spend from now to eternity and somebody would still have an opinion.
right, exactly.
So I kind of slammed the gavel and said, we're going to get this thing done.
Yeah, and what maybe some people don't understand is that the cable and network contracts are often intertwined, where we have all heard in the past, it's even happened with major cable networks, or I should say providers, where all of a sudden they're not showing NBC anymore for a couple of weeks or something, and that's because NBC, CNBC, you know, they're 5, 6, 7, 8, and they go, well, our rates are going up, you got to take this whole package. If you don't, guess what? We're going to pull them. And so that's why it's important. We're not talking about Channel 6 here.
No.
We're talking about, well, it used to be the major networks and the cable networks. It's not anymore. They're all one. They're all different companies owning sometimes dozens of channels. Yeah.
So, you know, that's a very unique area. And as Brad Hudson mentioned, we're going to have wonderful things happening very soon with our broadband. The capacity and the speed that people have been complaining about is going to be doubled, possibly tripled.
Exactly.
And at little to no additional cost.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, and you know, we can thank Chuck Holland probably, and the staff at Broadband and West Coast Internet. They've all been working together, and so that's a really good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things we did yesterday, we in our consent calendar, we had an endorsement that came from the Gate Access and Security Committee. And when we get into our 2018 budget process, which is going to spend a lot of time on that this month, we are hoping to be able to fund gates 1 through 4 and 7 through 10 with the RFD, the same sort of technology and setup that we have at 5 and 6. And this is a felt need that came from the mutuals because 5 and 6 have been so effective in tightening up our community. And both of the mutuals, United and Third, are really honing in on compliance issues, and the gates just support that endeavor. So we are recognizing that that's a priority for the mutuals, and in the budget planning process, we hope to be able to fund that. And depending on how the legwork is done, permits, plans, et cetera, if it gets funded in the budget, we have to pass the budget in September. We could actually ask for an early release of funds of those 2,000 so that construction could begin in this year if we're ready to roll. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
And I seem to recall at the meeting yesterday, you were kind of looking this as one project, but with multiple parts to it, depending what gates are needed first and so on. Am I right?
Yes, and I asked that 1 through 4 and 7 through 10 be kept separate from an accounting standpoint, so that the third mutual can see that GRF is spending money for their good.
Right.
And the same with United. And it's just going to become the contractor maintenance and construction division as to how they sequence the construction.
Okay.
But this is not, this is first, this is next. It's the 8 gates.
Okay.
And then whatever makes sense construction-wise.
Okay. Yeah, it's been very successful. It
Yeah.
definitely, and you know, along with that, I want to point out what Brad was talking about, and in fact, a few days from now, we're going to have Chuck Holland on talking about the app, the Dwelling Live app, and the more and more people start using that, the less and less the calls will be taken in.
It is so
and,
easy,
yeah.
and Brad keeps pushing the phone app.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I have an iPhone, but frankly, I prefer my computer,
Right.
because the screen's bigger and I can go
Exactly.
a lot faster than some little screen.
Yeah, and it's available for everything, yes.
It's so you simply go onto the website and you look up gate access. I can't, but it's so simple. And then once you're on it, you can do in a couple of seconds without waiting on the phone, and you
Right.
can do it weeks ahead.
Yeah, which is
So,
very nice.
It,
Very, very nice.
so those people that have not tried it, it's 10 times easier. And if you don't want to mess around with the phone, your computer or laptop is super, super simple.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how we doing for time?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. One of the resolutions or endorsements that we passed is our priority for funding club and organization requests, which come into
Yeah.
the budget planning process. We made a determination that we would no longer fund disposable items.
Okay.
So we're not buying, and we never did, but we're not buying golf balls for the golfers. We're not buying
Okay.
rackets for, and we actually had one organization where we've been spending $2,000 on tournament quality shuttlecocks.
Oh, really?
Really,
Okay.
and these come from Taiwan, and they have a certain kind of a feather. In no way do you have to play with that quality of shuttlecock. It's tournament quality.
Right.
So that was something we really felt that maybe was not in the best interest of the greatest number of residents. And so that's a new policy, and we've gotten very little pushback from the clubs so far. And I think that's, even though it was 3 hours, that's pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Very good. And we want to mention that are you still looking towards being back in the boardroom in June? Do you
Oh,
know that for
definitely.
sure yet? You
Definitely,
do? Okay.
yes.
All right.
And I don't know whether you've gone down and taken a look.
Well, what I've seen is just, last I saw was just a few days of carpeting and all, and our cameras are up.
Well, they actually
Yeah.
put in a row of the new the audience
Oh, okay.
seats, and they're very comfortable.
Oh, nice. I'll have to go and look
Much,
at
much
that. That I
nicer
haven't
than,
seen.
but we're all looking forward to that.
Yeah, I bet. All right, John, thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. I appreciate it. We'll be replaying that GRF meeting on Thursday at 1:30. And as I was saying, the open meeting part was about 3 hours and 4 minutes or something like that. So tune in for that. We'll be right back.